This week's drawing, brothers and sisters, is, of course, Daryl Dixon, and the extreme blacks and whites are used to show the polarizing differences in his personality and his personality traits since Season 1. Good or bad, you gotta love him. The Walking Dead, Season 4, Episode 4, Indifference. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Dead Nation, on Sundays, that is. I, of course, am Jim, here to bring you another review on this week's episode, the fourth episode of Season 4 of The Walking Dead. This was a really, really cool episode because there is the main thing that happened in this episode, which I'll get to at the end of it, I personally just did not see coming. Just didn't see it coming at all. I don't know if it was particularly a great twist, but it was an unexpected twist. So let's basically start out with the last episode. At the end of it, of course, we were kind of hit with the shocker, which again, I was another one. Maybe I'm naive. I didn't see it coming. Where Rick asked Carol, "Are you the one that killed, David and Karen?" And she said, "Yeah," and just kind of casually walked away. So anyway, the episode, that it ended off over there, and of course, the large herd was dodged. They just narrowly escaped Tyrese, Daryl, Michonne, and Bob, and they were on their way to the veterinary college to try to get medicine to bring back to, of course, combat this virus that's pretty much killing everybody in the prison. So the first few minutes is kind of a, what's going on at the prison. Everybody is sick, and we see this conversation between Carol and that little girl, not Mika, the other one, Lizzie, the older one. And she's talking with her, and it's basically, it's Carol kind of gone off the rails of the crazy train, A lot of people speculated that maybe Carol was covering for one of the little girls that actually killed the people or whatever, but Carol's actually having like this in her head flashback while she's talking to Lizzie, and it actually shows her going and just stabbing an alive person that was just coughing in cold blood in Karen and David, and of course dragging them outside and burning them. While this is happening, and it didn't really hit me as profound actually until right now when I was going back in my head to do this review, but Rick's kind of like re-examining the crime scene, he's the cop and all that sort of thing, and he's looking at the gasoline, and I think he's kind of re-envisioning in his head how it must have happened, and he's coming to the conclusion too that she killed these people in cold blood. They were not an immediate threat or danger to her, and she killed them anyway. You know what I mean? There was still hope for them, and she killed them. So the episode itself, though, is split into two parts. Rick has asked Carol to go on a run with him. Basically, most people are pretty much sick for the most part. There's only a few that are not yet sick in the prison. Maggie's one of them. She's kind of left to tend to the flock and be in charge of making sure the sick people don't get out anywhere and that nobody dies, sort of thing. And because when Cell Block D was hit, they lost all their food. Of course, they sacrificed the pigs. So Carol and Rick are going to go, somewhere on this run to see if they can find some food, any type of medicine, anything to help ease the suffering of the prison, right? The other half of the episode is the journey of the Fabulous Four, and it's kind of funny because you get a lot of people that talk about how there's no black guys on the show or no black people, right? Whenever there is one, they get killed and another one replaces them. Well, I just kind of thought about it. It's funny because you got three black guys, two black guys, a black girl, and a redneck, which is like the start to a bad joke that have gone on this run. You got the hillbilly Daryl, right? And then you got Michonne, the badass black sort of Jamaican chick with her cool with her cool dreads and everything. And then you've got Bob and Tyrese, And so I just think it's funny because, it's like all the black people in the show all went on a run with Daryl all at once for whatever reason or another. They decided to write that one in. So that's how the show goes back and forth, and it's divided between these two things, Carol and Rick and the errand that they run on. So instead of going back and forth, I'm going to kind of go into one part of it and then another part of it. So we find our four hapless survivors that dodged that mega herd and, of course, lost their car on the way to the veterinary college, have been walking, we assume, for hours or days. Tyrese has still kind of got that, I don't care, he almost sacrificed himself by not even wanting to get out of the car and then just barely hacked through 50 zombies to even stay alive. He's just kind of at that I don't care. He's being careless because he doesn't give a shit, he wants to die phase. They come upon this gas station, and it's kind of cool because I noticed instead of the 437 on the signs, it was turned upside down, all the numbers, so it looked like the 4 looked like an H, the 3 looked like an E, and then the 7 and 7 looked like an LL, so it's like hell, And which I thought was kind of cool. The gas station is overgrown with vines and weeds and everything like that. And they find a car outside, needs a battery. So, of course, they're going to go look inside the gas station, the service station, for a battery. And they're all kind of with their hammers and machetes and swords and whatever. They're hacking into the vines trying to find the door. And this is a couple years now of overgrowth that's happened. So these are like the vines at Wrigley Field. You know what I mean? You could probably find a person in there. And actually, they very quickly do as they're hacking into it. Tyrese kind of goes and lets open this door, which you didn't even realize to the station because they're hacking through these thick 2-3 foot thick vines. And all of a sudden, a walker goes and grabs Bob Stuckey, right? And Bob winds up going, and Michonne comes over and cuts off this zombie's head. And it's really kind of a cool action scene because there's another one that reaches out and goes to grab at Tyrese. And all Tyrese has got to do is kind of like let go. You know what I mean? And he just holds on like he's got this death wish. Daryl takes out another one with the help of Michonne. There was 3 of them total. And then they wind up, Tyrese falls back and the walker falls on top of him until somebody, I think it's Daryl, comes over and grabs him and pulls him off. Maybe it's Bob. Really kind of a cool action scene, some neat walker kills, but it's really kind of that like careless Tyrese that doesn't give a shit about anything. And him and Michonne then are wind up talking outside and having this I think it was a little bit of a profound conversation because she says, you could have just let go. You got to stop being an idiot and putting yourself in harm's way. And he's basically talking about, you hate the governor and you're angry at him, so don't tell me about anger and hate. What do you know, right? You're going out on this trail that's been cold for a while. For what reason? And Michonne can't really answer him about that. She claims that she's not angry at him, that she'd cut him in two if she saw him, but she's not angry, right? So it's really kind of a good conversation because it's kind of that balance between, not caring at all about anything and having something to believe in and hope for, something to go on and to live for, to fight for, right? And then we wind up seeing Daryl and Bob, they wind up getting into the gas station, and they wind up getting a little bit of bonding time. We find out, and we knew this from the first episode, but Daryl actually found Bob at the side of the road a couple weeks prior and had him join the group. Bob confesses that, basically he was just going to keep on walking and not even, stop and talk with Daryl. And Daryl said, why? And he said, well, because, it was 2 groups I had been with before, and I wound up being the lone survivor. It's like, it's almost like someone up above just wanted me to see this and repeat this over and over again. People getting close to a group of people and then dying, right? And he talked about when he went to that Quickie Mart with them, that S-Mart or S-Spot or whatever, where all the zombies fell through the ceiling. He talked about how, he came with just so he could get a bottle of liquor because, he's an alcoholic or he likes to drink, and that's basically what he does to take up his time when there's the silence, right? So it's really kind of a cool conversation, I thought, because Daryl and Bob bond a little bit, and Daryl says, "Hey, man, you're not going to be the last one anymore. Don't worry about it, And Daryl, kind of in his own redneck hillbilly way, sort of tries to bond with him. They wind up getting a car and getting to the veterinary college. They get in there. They don't really have any opposition on the way in. They're able to find all the meds they need, all the different stuff that Herschel wanted. Also, Bob Stuckey being a doctor is helpful because he's able to say, we got this, we got this, we got this. He's telling them to grab anything that ends in a sin, a CIN, like a penicillin, amoxicillin, all that type of stuff for antibiotics, and that they can feed them to him. They wind up running into some opposition on the way out, though. There's a ton of walkers in there, and it's really kind of cool because they're being chased all around the building, and they go from like this one hallway into this completely darkened room and barricade the door behind them. And then they wind up going and seeing a few of these infected walkers that are behind this next door that they got to get through. And in really kind of a cool scene, they go and they open the door, and in one fell swoop, one of their heads gets blown off, and then Michonne lops off the other 2 with her badass katana, But so they wind up tramping around and they get out of the college. But on the way out, they have to break through this window. They're on the 2nd story on like a ledge, an overlook ledge. And Bob kind of falls over to the edge, and he's got the bag, which you think has all the medicine in it. Zombies are pulling on it. Tyrese and everybody come back to save him, and Daryl. They wind up pulling the bag up or whatever, and Daryl checks in it, and there's a bottle of alcohol. And he's like, and so now he's pissed, right? And this is kind of cool because this is where Daryl goes and just mans up. And I hate this shit when people do this in real life, but Daryl goes and pulls, I call it the redneck bitch out, man. He gets up in his face and he starts putting his forehead up against him and everything, and he's just like, you ain't got the medicine in the bag? We came back for this? That type of thing. Like, you could have just let it go. And Bob's trying to explain, like, hey, man, I wasn't going to hurt nobody, it's just for when there's the quiet times, I just needed something. And Daryl just basically tells him, you stay the fuck away from me, you should have just kept on walking. So they wind up going and leaving, getting in a car, and they're on their way back now. That's kind of their half of the story. The other half of the story, and I saved this one for last because I thought it was real profound, and I thought it was going to be boring, but it's Carol and Rick going on this run. They go into some little area. It looks like a little subdivision, there's houses everywhere and that sort of thing, maybe a little in the suburbs, I don't know where. And they wind up coming upon a couple of survivors, a zombie that they kill, and they wind up coming upon a couple of survivors in this first house. These two survivors, and they're kind of like, they look like these hippies. This one chick, that's Anna, that's got this bad foot, and this other guy, and basically they want to help. They get asked the 3 questions by Rick, and then Rick and Carol decide that they can come back with them, but they warn them, hey, listen, everybody's sick, and there's all these problems going. They're like, hey man, walls and safety and whatever, we'll do whatever. So they go and they talk Rick and Carol into allowing them to go and help. And Rick gives them a gun and everything else, tells them to meet back in 2 hours, and they're going to help, ransack some of the different houses for medicine and for food. The rest of the episode, and then they go off on their own way, and the rest of the episode is really the parts with Carol and Rick I thought were cool, because Carol has had a rough time of it. She was married to an abusive husband who eventually was killed. Her daughter was killed, and right in front of her, and then, well, of course, when she came out of the barn as a zombie in season 2, and she's really just had a rough time of it. Her and Daryl have been flirting a lot for the last couple of years. She probably wants some of that redneck dick, but she hasn't gotten it yet, as far as we know. So she's probably got a lot of pent-up aggression from that too. She really probably just needs to, to get nailed. And I'm trying not to be too lewd here, but we wind up having this conversation that goes on between her and Rick, and basically she's like, Rick, I killed 2 people in cold blood. You haven't said a word to me. What's the deal? And Rick's just like, what do you want me to say? And she's like, listen, there's nothing that we can do about it. We got to move forward, and you know what? It is what it is. And then she basically just tells him, you're just going to have to accept it. And Rick just kind of has this look on his face like, no, I don't want to accept it. And she keeps talking to him during the course of the episode about how he's this great leader, and he was a great leader, and he really should be. And he goes, yeah, but I never killed any of our own people. And she goes, you killed 1. And she's referring to Shane, right? So he says, yeah, but he was going to kill me. He was trying to kill me. And she said, well, they were a danger too. And Rick says, no, they weren't. You don't know that. And he's basically now, it's his fall of distrust, during the course of the episode with her. Because now you got to remember, Carl told him a couple episodes ago about she's teaching kids how to use knives. He's seen her be kind of cold. He's seen her be careless like she was in the last episode where she just went out to fix the hose shit by herself and zombies were upon her. So he realizes that she's now a liability and she's a loose cannon, right? At some point, they wind up going and seeing this blood trail as they're talking, outside somewhere. They open up this gate. They see a piece of a leg, and they see a couple of zombies chewing on the girl, Anna, right? So she didn't make it. They go back to the house to wait after the 2 hours are up and talk a little bit more. And, basically they're just like, hey, listen, they're not coming. The other guy, he's not coming. He didn't make it. So they go out to the car, and this was kind of cool. Carol goes to open up the passenger door, and it's locked, right? And I'm thinking, oh, shit, maybe this kid's playing games with him, this hippie kid, And it turns out Rick goes, and he's just like, listen, he goes, you're a liability. He goes, and honestly, when Tyrese finds out about what you did, no matter how you try to defend it, he's going to kill you. And, Rick also was kind of thinking in his mind, what you've done, nobody is going to trust you. I mean, it's going to divide, even if Tyrese doesn't kill you, it's going to divide the community, right? Within the prison, it's going to divide. People aren't going to be able to sleep safe at night thinking that, hey, this woman who thinks she just knows that she did right is going to kill you in cold blood if, she even thinks that you might be a threat to them. So on one hand, I can argue for Carol's side, but then I can also play devil's advocate and say, hey, I wouldn't fucking want her around me or my kids either, right? And he makes mention of that. He goes, because she's like, we don't need to tell anybody. And he's like, yeah, I do. And he goes, and even if there was nobody else around and it was just me and my kids, I wouldn't want you around my kids. So you do whatever you want. You're not this lonely person that's weak anymore that just needs to be with your husband because she explains during the course of the episode how Ed used to beat her up and how he dislocated her shoulder, and that's how she knew how to pop this kid's shoulder back in. And basically she found out about it on the internet, so she didn't have to go to the emergency room a 3rd time and lie and say she fell on the stairs. So she basically says that she stayed with this abusive person because he was occasionally nice to her and she was afraid of being alone. Rick, though, basically tells her, hey, listen, you know what? You're strong enough now and you don't need to worry about being alone, so hit the road, Jack. And I mean, I was just amazed because I was like, really? He's going to kick her out of the group? I mean, I thought she was going to get killed somehow, right? And I guess that was probably what everybody thought. Now she's a loose cannon and they're going to kill her off. And my thought is I'm not going to weigh in on whether I would have kicked her out or not, but I'm telling you that in my heart of hearts, if I was in this situation and I ever felt the need to exile somebody, to kick somebody out, right, I'd put a bullet between their eyes. And that may sound cold-blooded, but I was just talking to my wife about it. I got my kids there. She knows how to get in and out of there. She knows every intricacy of the prison. She knows where our weaknesses are and everything else. Say she goes off and is starving for a few days and comes upon a band of jackals that go and rape her and beat her up or whatever, right? And she's at the point of just wanting to die, and she just goes and says, please, just stop. I'll tell you where there's other people, right? Other people you can go rape and attack or whatever. It's a hypothetical situation, but I certainly wouldn't want to leave her out there again as a loose cannon, you know? So that was really the bombshell, the shock of the episode for me, because it happened right at the end. And up until he was having the conversation with her, I was like, where is this going, you know? And he, like I said, he tells her in no uncertain terms, you cannot be trusted anymore. You killed those people in cold blood. And for someone who's on this council that's supposed to be trusted and make decisions with others, you acted on your own. And even though you say it was in everybody's best interest, everybody's not going to agree that it was in their best interest. Now, I'm kind of curious to see, you know, how the rest of the group is affected by this. If Rick tells them the truth, if Daryl's upset because, you know, maybe he was planning on eventually hitting that, I don't know. But ultimately, that's how things wrap up. Tyrese and Bob, Daryl and Michonne, with of course Daryl still being pretty pissed at Bob. Had, you know, they hotwired that minivan. They got all the things at the veterinary college. We presume they're on their way back to the prison now to be the saving grace and hopefully help save everybody's lives, right? Because we don't want, you know, Glenn dying and all the other people that are there that are sick. And Rick is in the car on his way back. He gasses up or he gives a car that's got some gas and gives an extra thing of gas to Carol. And she basically just kind of goes and gives him this watch that was given to her by her husband, or that was her husband's, and says, yeah, I should have gotten rid of the damn thing a while ago. And she's real cold-hearted about it. She just gets in the car and just fucking drives off. And I was thinking, man, there's going to be some kind of, this is going to come back to haunt them in some way, shape, or form. This is not the last we've seen of Carol, so mark my words on that one. But that's how things ended. That's how they wrapped up. The episode question I have for you, brothers and sisters, is, did you see this coming with Carol? I honestly didn't. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm stupid. Call me whatever you will. But I'd like you to weigh in on that on the comments down below. Let's get some good discussion going. Did you think that Carol was going to be killed, or did you think that she was going to be ousted in this way? And certainly look forward to the next episode now, right? Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll look forward to catching you in the next one, nation.
Whoo-wee, I just cannot get enough of that Norman Reedus playing Daryl Dixon. He is just so fine, girl. Well, boy, I just want to love him and squeeze him and name him George.
What the fuck?